So today on the hot seat, we've got the amazing, the wonderful Ryan McKee. I'm super excited to have you on here. Ryan McKee, we go back a ways. So a while back, I got introduced to a coaching company and I dug my heels in the ground, and you're the one that actually sat down with me off of Starbucks and you showed me what they did and kind of convinced me to join the core as a whole, which really changed the trajectory of my life, my business, for good, for worse. You never know.
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
But what I love about you is we speak the same language. We're in the same ecosystem. We know all the same people. So I'm so excited about this podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I find the most interesting about you is your third generation. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So what does Christmas look like? Do we talk shop? How did this start? Little boy Ryan, when did you start realizing real estate was your jam?
It's funny. Yeah. Every day is a real estate conversation. That's the problem. Cause the deeper that you go into my life, you'll see, it started just with my dad and I, and, my dad actually didn't get into the real estate business until, maybe he was in his mid to late 30s or maybe even close to 40 years old. He had a 25-year career in, he owned an auto repair shop, and on a whim just changed his life and got into real estate and took off with it really quickly.
Okay.
So.
And how old were you at this time?
I must have been probably 15 or 16.
All right.
So still a good portion of, my high school years going into college, that's all I knew was real estate. So I was always watching. But the interesting thing is my dad would always tell me, he's like, don't go into real estate. Don't go into real estate. So that's what I did.
Right.
I took a couple other directions, and it wasn't until 2008 is the best year to get into real estate, is when I decided, hey, perfect timing. So, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so you took it what other directions did you? You were in a band, I know that much.
Right, yeah. So, I tried going to college, and it was not for me. Apparently RCC is not a 6-year program. Right. So, I didn't go that direction. I fell in love with music. I'd always, followed, just playing music and started playing guitar just for fun. It turned into more of a passion. And
you taught yourself?
Taught myself. Yeah. Back in the days before iPhones and tablets and all that.
Right.
So, learned how to play, and then ended up starting to play in some bands, and moved out to Los Angeles and took it pretty far. We actually had, put out a couple albums, had, a couple labels that we were on, and toured for most of my 20s.
Right on. Wow.
And then,
okay.
In music, just like
so
with everything.
what genre of music?
Like punk, rock, like Warped Tour. Basically, if you're familiar with Warped Tour, that's where we were.
So did you have groupies?
I don't know. I don't even know. It's maybe not. I don't really, I don't know. Funny thing is too, just like every aspect of my life, it's always funny thing about this. I was married for a lot of that portion as well too.
Okay.
Which is an interesting concept for being a guitar player in a traveling band, living with, 5 people in a van. Anyway, right. Shocked it didn't work out, but, yeah, long story short is we actually took it pretty far. And at the height of our career, I was 29 years old, turning 30. Okay. And had that milestone moment in my life where I'm like, what do I want to do? And I realized I had lost my passion for music. I didn't really love it. The industry was changing. Some friends of ours had got signed to RCA Records, and it was a $500,000 deal, basically, a record deal. And they were on and off the label within about a year. And so I started thinking, I'm like, well, this probably isn't going to be a long-term thing for me. Our oldest son, Dylan, who just turned 21, was about 1 year old at the time. We celebrated his 1-year birthday 2 months before his birthday because I was on the road for 10 months.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So was that the catalyst that made you just want to rethink things?
It was, and being newly married, having a young child, and being gone 10 months out of the year.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
like,
a lot.
This is not a good pattern.
Right.
And so, always had loved music. started changing with that. And that's actually what transitioned. I ended up getting a job, actually right here close to your office with local civil engineering company that I knew the family, and they took me in, and I started learning how to be a land surveyor, which was crazy.
I knew that you knew my neighbor, but I didn't know that you worked there and was fresh out of touring and all of that.
They have
so
some
this
stories.
was first responsible job, like first 9 to 5.
Real job out of touring. So, maybe 8 to 10 years of touring, and this was the conversation I had with my dad, and he said, get a real job, get something with benefits and something that you can actually make a career out of. So that's what I did.
All right.
And it was probably 2005, 2006, somewhere in that range. So did that for about 2 years. And then this job that I thought I was supposed to have that was going to be a career, there wasn't any work. It was slowing down. There was nothing to do. And it was a union job. And I'm like, man, it's kind of scary. So I started thinking about real estate again. So
did you have any more children at that time, or was it still Dylan?
Not yet. Not until 2010 it was 2008 with Logan, and then 2010 with Haley. So yeah, we right around when I transitioned and started my job at Hunsaker.
That's right. Because our kids are, Jaden, my oldest, is 21. Then Monty's just turned 16, and then Lexi is 13.
Yep.
So yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So yeah, Logan is Monty's age, right?
Yeah.
So that's when I really transitioned into, okay, we're gonna, start building our family and start seeing where I go in the whole job field. And then I had extra time in the land surveying industry, because you start work at 4, 5 a.m. and you get off by like 2 p.m. And I had a lot of nights and weekends available. So I went to my dad and said, hey, I'm going to get my real estate license. And I'd love to work under you and learn under you, but I also understand if it's not the right time and something you don't want to do. So if not, I'll go somewhere else and figure it out. And then he saw that I was serious. So he's like, okay, well, I'll take you on. And of course it was 2008.
Right.
And he was slammed.
We were so busy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. In his neck of the, with what he was doing, he was running 400 or 500 assets through these, banks.
So you had the experience of full immersion into real estate. Like it was like one day yes, and then one day not doing it, and the next day doing it fully?
Not really. So, obviously my dad is much smarter than that, than to just be like, here you go, right? So it was the same way with that. I had to earn my way into everything. Nothing was ever given with me. So it all started with, hey, if you want to get some calls, go put a sign writer on one of my signs, or start calling these buyer leads, or go do open houses. So I just had to grind.
So you put in the grunt work.
I put in the grunt work.
All right.
And started working with buyers and started following up on things that he didn't follow up with, and just became passionate about it.
How long did it take before it started sticking, before you started actually producing and were able to transition from land surveying over to real estate full time?
Good question. Yeah, it was at least a 2-year process, to where, I started working with some of the people that I was working with that wanted to buy houses, and started to have an experience where, we would go through the process. They would tell a friend or family, and it just was kind of organic. And so that led to, a couple sales here and there, nothing major. But I also just kind of pushed my way into what my dad was doing. He had a partner at the time that was handling some assets. And so I started shadowing the partner, and, got a couple opportunities there, and thought, this is it. Like, this is going to be great. Like, I think I probably made maybe even close to 100,000 my first year.
Oh, that's really good.
Just from pure grinding.
That's really good.
Really good. And so I thought, this is real estate. This is how it was. So naturally, we started spending accordingly, right?
Naturally.
Naturally. Like, oh, this real estate thing, why didn't I do this years ago? And then 2010, into '09, 2010, about a year and a half in, moratoriums hit. And the faucet was shut off, at least on the real estate side with the bank repos. And it really slowed down. And so, we went from, making decent money, had some money in the bank, to literally depleting everything and basically going broke. I mean, this is literal. Everything slowed down. Even with all the efforts I was putting out, nothing was materializing. And we went from maybe 30,000 in the bank down to zero. Ooh. And literally had a message into my parents to say, hey, I'm not going to be able to make my mortgage, and we need some help. And I had a tax return that came in.
Oh, it's funny how life works like that.
Literally bought us a couple months, and then got with my wife and I said, hey, you know what? This isn't going to happen again. And so kind of took a whole new approach to everything with that. And then, long story short,
you had two kids. You had Dylan and Logan at that time.
2 kids at the time.
Okay. So you had the fear, you had the responsibility fully on you at this point.
Well, yeah, because at that time too, with the land surveying job, they pretty much had to, lay me off,
right,
because there was no work. And so I had no choice. It was real estate or nothing, or figure something else out. So my wife, Candace, was working as a TC. So she was the breadwinner for a good amount of years. And then after about maybe a year to 2 years, we were able to transition her. Once I got full-time into real estate, then I really started to figure out what I was going to do. Because I moved away from all the bank stuff. I just realized I can't have all my eggs in one basket.
Yep.
And so
huge life takeaway, which we'll talk a lot more about.
Yeah.
So once you said, okay, all my eggs can't be in this basket. So what did you start doing then? What was...
Yeah,
where did the lead flow come from at this point?
At that point, there was still a lot of investors that were coming into the market. Yep. And so I ended up getting lucky. There was, somebody that had called to my dad's line and said, hey, we're looking to purchase some houses. And my dad just gave me the number. He's like, hey, give him a call, see if it's anything. I ended up pursuing that relationship, and it was a company called Waypoint Homes. And it got to a point where I was probably writing 20 offers a day for Waypoint Homes.
Holy moly.
They had an unlimited...
Just from a call-in.
Just from a call-in. Ended up speaking with an acquisitions associate, ended up developing, a good relationship with them. And the best piece of advice I got from my dad was, he said, you need to find out what their exit strategy is. So I asked him, I said, if I spend a lot of this time to help you guys acquire properties, can I earn the right to help you liquidate those at the end? And of course, you may always get told yes, who knows what that could be, but these guys honored their word. So we probably were writing 20 offers a day, helped acquire. I think my biggest year in working with them did like 86 transactions or something ridiculous like that.
So what was their exit strategy?
Well, they basically pooled everything into these funds, and each one was like 20 to 40 properties or whatever it may have been, and basically they got bought out. They got purchased by a larger entity, and they started liquidating all of those. So it was a rent and hold type of strategy. They pick up these large pools, and whether it was a real estate investment trust or whatever it was, I'm not too sure how it all worked out, but they said, hey, at some point we're going to be selling all of these off. So they purchased them, rented them out, sold them years down the line. So that lasted for me probably almost 5 to 6 years in total from start to finish before they got bought out. So.
Okay. And then after that, what did you start doing? Have you always, because you're a big relationship guy now, which were you always that way?
Not always, the investors was the first thing that I learned. Okay, there's something here that I understand. Right. So I started working with other investors, and then luckily I always, with retail, that was always a primary focus for me. So a lot of it was just natural, whether it was people that we were friends with, people from church, people from, now we have kids. So kids are playing sports, you meet other families, and I've always just been passionate about real estate. So it's always come into the conversations.
For sure. And you're a connector too. You're a big connector. Yeah. This person, we should probably talk to this person. Like, You make magic happen that way.
Yeah, it's I don't know where that came from, honestly, too. Like it's just naturally that is a blessing. But also I've always been it's always been easy for me to volunteer for the job, right? So if I see the opportunity, it's always very easy for me to say, hey, let me help you. Let me jump in with hey, let me get you started on this process.
Right. Okay, so let's fast forward to the Corps.
Yeah.
What changed once you joined the Corps?
Yeah.
What didn't change might be the better question.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I'll be honest with you. I was in real estate it was 2018, so 10 years.
Okay.
It was 10 years that I was in real estate, and literally in 2018, I was ready to quit, and I hated it. So almost like my music career, I'm like, I don't think this is for me. I don't love it. I don't understand it. It was very cyclical. It was up and down. I was working 70, 80 hours a week from my house, which was not good. And I didn't know what to do. I'm like, I don't know how to fix this. And then I heard about this program called the Corps. And my honest thought was, it's like a money grab. Like, I don't need real estate coaching. Like, I know how to do real estate, but you don't know what you don't know at the time.
Right.
And so, after probably 2 years of being told that I needed to come to this program, I finally caved, and I'm like, okay, fine. I'll go check this, they call it a summit. Go check that out.
It's like a fire hose, by the way.
Oh my gosh. And that was the moment for me where I'm like, okay, so now you're surrounded by the top 1% in the nation. You've got, I felt like the smallest
You're a guppy.
Fish.
Yeah, for sure.
And realized, okay, there is so much more that I'm not doing.
Right.
And it opened my eyes to everything I was doing wrong.
Right.
Because, I'm sure you may feel similar. Like I walked into that first summit thinking, I got it all together. I'm great. I'm doing this.
I did too. I'm like, I've been in this industry for X amount of years. Like I walked out with my eyes this wide with a headache pounding, like I'm doing it all wrong.
Right. Yeah. And that was a beautiful thing for me to hear, because I'm like, okay, there's a solution here.
Right. There's a path.
There's a path. And if I'm willing to just surrender and do everything different, because that's what literally the first thing that I had to do was break down everything that I had built for the last 10 years.
I don't want to say that's hard, because once you realize like I'm doing it all wrong, for me, it's like, okay, implement really quickly. Yep. But there is a lot to breaking everything down and rebuilding. That's a whole headache in itself.
It is. Well, and you have to pretty much trust that this process that these strangers are telling you is going to work. And I was okay with it, because I was at a point where I'm like, listen, I'm already ready to quit anyway.
Right. Let's give it a try.
So if it doesn't work, it's not a huge loss. But it still is scary, because you just don't know. Like,
Right.
is what they're telling me, should I trust it?
Right.
And how is all of this going to change my business? But you don't know until you actually go through it. So.
All right. So before the Corps, were you as structured? Because you're very structured now.
I would say yes, but in a different way.
Okay.
In a different way. So I was never trained. Like I said, the 6 years I spent at RCC, I didn't learn anything about time management.
Right.
How to run a business.
That's what Corps teaches you, is how to run a business.
100%.
How to be profitable.
I had not done a budget or P&L or anything on my business the entire 10 years. I mean, money came in, money went out, and if we had it, we spent it.
Yes.
Yeah. But business was it was peaks and valleys. So, I had always, I don't know if I would say structured, but I was always a hard worker,
For sure. Oh yeah. You wear that on your sleeve. You are definitely a hard worker.
Right.
It's really interesting, because you are an extraordinarily tactical person, but you're a relationship person as well. How do you balance both being tactical and let's just get it done to slowing it down and being relationship based?
It's good. Well, thank you for saying that, because
tactical.
Thank you. Yeah. Please send this to a few choice people, right? Like, the relational part is so hard for me, right? Because I'm an introvert, and I love tactics
Yep.
and I love systems and processes,
Right.
which I know we share
Right.
an interest in. But I'll be honest with you, like people drain me.
Right.
People drain me. And unless it's, my friends and family and people like that actually give you energy. But we're in a business where it can be very consuming,
It can, and your job is meant to be relationship based. So when you're not a people person, it's not really. Someone had a word for it. It's like I'm an introvert, but when I have to be extroverted, I'm on. I can do it. Same. I just am a lot more drained when I get home at the end of the day. Like my husband will speak to me and I'm like, I can see your mouth moving.
Yeah, that's about it.
I got that far.
That's right. Yeah, I have nothing left. Yeah.
But we've gone to the summits together. We've gone to core experiences. Like, okay, first of all, I got to share. Was it the last main stage talk that you did, right? I can't remember who spoke right before you. They were great, but the crowd was a little bit quieter. You put one foot on the step and you're like, "What's up, everybody?" And I was like, "What is this, your alter ego? Where did you come from?"
Yeah, it was definitely a different side.
It was. And it was like you just and the whole 45-minute talk up there had that same amount of energy. You just kept going and going and going. And I was like, okay, Ryan.
Yeah, so different. It's, when you talk about what you're passionate about, I think it makes it easy.
Right.
And I think why you and I both became coaches and the reason why I've chosen to, continue in coaching is because it literally has changed my life.
It does. And you want to pay that forward.
And you want to pay it forward. And, there's a sense of obligation. But I'll be honest with you, even more than that, I am so afraid that I'm going to lose what I've built that the only choice I have is to continue to give it away.
I agree. So I think it's more than that. It's the accountability. The accountability is hard. Let's be clear. Some days you don't want the accountability. Yep. Some days you just want to just let me be. Mm-hmm. Let me go to Disneyland. But the accountability is what keeps it going. And then iron sharpens iron. When you get in with some of the biggest producers that we have in the nation, it's just not about their production. It's about their client experience. It's about their process. It's about how they build relationships. Yep. It's about how they run their P&L. And then you're learning from everybody. I value perspective as the most valuable thing that you can get in life. And being in the core, especially as a coach, we have perspective. Yeah. That is for sure. Yeah. So I absolutely love that. Now, what are some of the biggest things that you learned in the core that has helped you build your business?
Gosh, I don't even know where to start. I mean, the first thing was I was told for the first time that I was not running a business. I was running a nonprofit organization. And
did you argue?
And no, okay. I heard what I needed to hear that I knew was the truth. Right. But when you're only talking to yourself, it's hard to hear that. But that was the best bit of truth. This was the first place that ever told me the opposite of what I wanted to hear, but what I actually needed to hear. Right. Which is you're running a terrible company and we can fix you. Right. And so
how quickly?
So within a 2-year period, it went from, it's my journey is, and I was doing well. Like I said, I was doing well when I got here, but we look at the entire circle of life balance. Right. And I was 99% work, 0% fun, family, like all of the other, life balance things that we work for. It was very much off balance. And so that's what I love is there's accountability with that as well, too.
So do you feel like you can turn it off now?
I can. As a matter of fact, we just got back from, 4 days in Dallas. And if you would have told me years ago, like that my emails would be taken care of, deals would still flow, I'd have this great team that can support me and allow me to do that, I would have said, no way.
Yeah, you have got a great team too.
Yeah. And it's always a work in progress, right?
Right.
Because
so let's talk about that. We're core coaches, right? And so at this point, we're looked to like we got all of our stuff together. We don't. We're failing. Like every pillar, we're failing in it. But we're always looking to get 1% better. We're always. So how do you balance the pressure How do you balance that? So many people look at you that you're doing everything right with things that you know you're failing at. Do you
Right.
take one thing at a time, or what do you do with that?
You have to, and you have to be transparent, right?
Yep.
I think that projecting that everything is perfect and, hey, look at me, I'm so balanced, is a recipe for
Disaster.
failure
Yeah.
and disaster. So I think you have to be transparent with what's working, and you have to be transparent with what's not.
Right.
And I think that people can relate to that. I know I appreciated that with the coaches that I had that said, hey, Ryan, like we do site visits where you can actually go and see how they run their teams on site. And I remember going to a site visit with one of my coaches, and he had the absolute biggest disaster of a day with his team. And he let us experience that. And he's like, Ryan, this is the real world.
This
I'm like,
is,
thank
it's
you
not
so
fun.
much for showing
It's not
that.
pretty. This is the grind. Welcome.
Because, it was good to see, because we all know that stuff happens.
Oh,
But
yeah.
how do you deal with it? How do you get better, from that? What changes do you make and implement within your team? And that's what I was able to see, is how to do that. Because we're, as team leaders now, we have to be leaders. We have to
Right.
be examples. We have to
Yep.
lead from the front. We have to be transparent, all these different things. And it's helped me to really step up and adopt that role, because now I don't have a choice.
Yeah, you don't have a choice.
It's the obligation that I've chosen
Yep.
to accept. But, leadership is a big responsibility.
It's a huge responsibility. It's a bigger responsibility than I even imagined. And it's not something, some people are, yes, great
Right.
natural leaders.
Yep.
But I don't care if you're naturally a great leader, you still have to hone that craft constantly. It is not a linear journey. It is a mess of a journey to be a leader. Let me say that.
Yeah,
For
and
sure.
It's always a challenge, because I think we're learning and growing. And some days I feel like I'm a great leader, and some days I feel like my team's probably going to leave tomorrow,
Right.
and I completely screwed that up. But leadership is influence.
It is influence.
And I used to think, well, great leadership is the numbers and it's about all these other aspects. But at the end of the day, for me now, I realize that leadership is influence. And the more that I can positively influence my people and my ecosystem, my team, they can do great things.
Yep.
So if I just pour into them, then I can get everything that I want.
Yep.
And that's honestly what my focus has been in my business, is my clients are my top priority. So if I can just focus enough on helping them to achieve their goals and whatever it is to give them a great
The
experience,
trickle down effect.
all of the other aspects take care of themselves.
Yep.
The profitability, all of that. So
Yep.
that's always been my focus, is
Yep.
just take great care of people and to do the right thing. That's one thing that always was instilled to me from my dad, is don't worry about the paycheck. Don't worry about that. You do the right thing, then the right things will come.
And that's the best thing to learn, in my opinion.
Yeah, because we're in a business where it's not always the case.
It is not always the case. So I love that. I'm very big on do the right thing when no one's looking.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
And
that's
it's
what
hard.
matters.
Even with that, it's hard. I'd love to say that that's the case. It's not.
Yeah.
I mean, I still screw up all the time. But you had mentioned being 1% better.
Yep.
I think that applying that to every aspect of my life, I want to be 1% better as a father, 1% better as a husband, 1% better as a employer, an employee. Like
Right.
I'm an employee now for the
Yep.
core. And
Yep.
like, am I being, the best in every aspect?
Yeah, and you
So-
do have to switch your mindset. I always tell my husband, it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, like different mindsets. Especially for me, Sundays is the day that I'll work here and there, like when my phone rings.
Yep.
But Sundays is a family day.
Yeah.
And so switching out from mom mode, wife mode, literally driving down my hill into the office, going into work, Laura.
Yeah.
It's a whole mindset dump,
is.
man.
It is.
And so switching between the different facets, from core coach to student of Rick Ruby,
Right.
to with your clients, with your team, whatever. It's a whole different thing.
It is. And it's hard to transition, because I like to, so we talked about, being third generation. Well, now my 21-year-old son
I know,
is my
he's-
sales coordinator.
yes.
So we have a potential fourth generation. He's in the process of getting licensed. My wife is my operations manager. So
And she's a tough cookie.
and
She's
a
really
tough cookie.
good with
Yeah.
operations.
And
yeah.
if you really want to know why our business has gotten so much better within the last couple of years, honestly, it's because of her, right?
the way
And-
you guys worked. You guys have been together 21 years, though.
21 years,
So we
yeah.
know how to communicate.
Yeah.
We've been through rough patches. She keeps you in check.
It's just, I'm a slow learner. It's taken me that long to listen. So 2 years ago, she was like, I'm going to come in and fix you. So,
Yes, dear.
because it's just, in all honesty, I'm really good at some things and I am terrible at others.
And well, that's fine with all of us.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do some hot seat questions.
Okay.
Okay, so we spoke about failure.
Yeah.
whether it's one instance or just over the course of just failing over and over and over again, what have you learned from it?
I've learned that failure is part of the process. Failure. So we both have heard this, right? But failure is part of success. The more I fail, the more successful that I get. And so I embrace failure now.
Yep, so do I.
Love that. I literally am like, it's always an opportunity to learn. I used to think I would go on a listing appointment and my perspective would be, if I don't win it, I'm a failure, right? And I can go on 10 listing appointments, win 9 of them and lose 1, and I will only focus
Ruminate
on the
about
one
that one.
that I lost. So that's the biggest thing that I've learned is failure is part of the process. It's always going to be part of the process. And I always choose to now embrace that and figure out, okay, this is an opportunity for me to grow.
And I love that mindset switch. I did that to myself. Like when there's a failure, failures happen all through, every single day. Now, if I have a failure in communication or failure with the team or failure within something, I literally have a channel that is problem failure. That, okay, here's the problem. Now here is the solution to it. So I actually like failures now because it shows me where the kinks in the chain are. I like to fix them and move on. Let's be clear. But I embrace them as well. Okay, I love that one.
Yeah.
All right. So work-life balance. I know how hard we both work.
Right.
Now, when you're balancing work, like there are some weeks you're going to have to put in the 80 to 100 hours. That's just how it goes.
Yep.
There are some weeks that you look at the clock and you're like, it's 9 o'clock and I'm still here. I thought it was like 7 in the morning.
Right.
Who is it? Your kids that keep you balanced when you're with them? Do you have really great quality time? What balances you to pull you the other way when it gets too extreme in the work mode?
Yeah, it's with my team. Like I have a designated person that literally runs my schedule and my life.
Right.
And so now it's accountability to where I say, this is what's important to me. It gets put in my schedule and it's up to me if I'm going to prioritize that or not. So if my schedule tells me I need to go home at 6 p.m. and eat dinner with my family,
then you have
and
to
I
go home.
choose not to do that, then I'm telling my family they're not important.
Yep.
And I honestly am still not perfect with it, just to be honest. And you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I'm like, okay, I'm such a hypocrite now. I'm coaching these people, telling them, you need to have life balance and you need to do this. Well, now if I'm not doing it, then I'm a hypocrite.
Right.
And I have to lead by example because not only am I teaching and coaching other people, I'm also showing my family, which means my kids now are seeing what type of an example I'm going to be.
Right. So I actually had a recent failure on this. So I have, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are my later days. So Monty turned 16 Friday. And so Thursday night we went out to dinner. And so I said, I'm going to we meet in and out around 8 p.m. We'll have a client call me. And so I'm like, oh, I'm close enough. I'll just take the call. Well, I ended up not showing up till 8:36 and he was in tears. Yeah. And it was when you see, and a 16-year-old not sobbing, it's like, he's kind of, I will never, ever do that again. I had no words. I couldn't even muster an apology because I was like, what is wrong with you? You shouldn't have picked up that call.
Yep.
So it's a work in progress.
There 1,000 times over. And it's with my kids, with my wife, whatever it may be. And I get it because I'm wired the same way. Like I want to win every single deal. I want to take the best care of my clients. And it's honestly, it's not even intentional. It's just how I'm wired. Right. So when you talk about that, it's accountability.
It is. It is. Now, we ended up having a really great birthday. You went to Magic Mountain and all of it, but this is one of those things that I think is burned in my brain. On my deathbed, I'll probably think about it. That's how big of a deal. And you and I had a mentor. He did a class on time blocking, and he said, when you build your calendar, whether it's your day calendar, your year calendar, whatever it is, you start with the gold time. That gold time is your family time, and then you build your time blocking from it. Yep. And so I'm very protective of that family time, and every once in a while, especially towards Wednesday, Thursday, when you're just in that get it mode done, I let things like that slip through, and that's not a thing anymore.
Good. Yeah, we're all a work in progress.
Right. Okay, last question for you. People define success in so many different ways, whether you've got money in the bank, whether your paycheck monthly, whether it's the time you have. How do you define success these days?
I mean, it's different. My definition, used to be a number. It used to be a status. It used to be a title. And at the end of the day, I don't know if it's just the older that you get, or as you accumulate more, it always changes. But for me, success now is a happy family and it's experiences. I was just talking about this with a friend, and material things don't really mean much to me.
Yeah.
But time and experiences mean everything. And I think that we realize that, as you lose people, as relationships come and go from your life, you really define. I feel like I've got deeper relationships with fewer people, and my time is everything. But now, we both have, with growing kids, like.
Yep.
I just want to be there for their experiences. I keep forgetting. I'm like, that's why I got into real estate, was because that's a beautiful thing, is it allows me to do that.
Right.
But I've chosen for so many years to build this business and build this. And it was almost the opposite. I'm like, I'm not available for anything.
I know. It's funny how that works. You get into real estate because you're going to have more time. Oh, and then you realize you're obsessive.
Yep.
You're a builder. You're a perfectionist.
That's right. Yeah. And it's like, there's not enough time in the day.
Right.
And so I think for me, the definition of success is it's the happiness and the quality of life that I have with people around me and with myself.
Right.
Do I feel fulfilled?
Right.
Because my mindset is, I think it was Rockefeller that said it, but it's like, how much is enough?
Right.
And I'm like, just a little bit more.
Right.
A little bit more than what I have right now. And you can't achieve that.
No, it's impossible.
So, I think for me, it's being content and satisfied with what I have. And I'm not there yet. I'm still not there yet, but I'm getting closer. I'm working on it.
I'm working on it consistently. We'll see how the next 10 years goes.
There you go.
Well, I appreciate you having you on. It was super enlightening. Yeah, this will be a fun one to listen to for sure.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Cool.